Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. Welcome to Madrid. I can assure you it is sunny. The sky is blue. It is a glorious morning here in Madrid, even if it looks like I'm in the darkest hotel room known to man. If you're watching this on YouTube rather than listening via podcast, you know what I'm talking about. I've got every single light turned on in this room and it still feels ridiculously dark, but it is nice out there. It was raining yesterday, pretty miserable day in Madrid yesterday, but it's glorious sunshine. I've just been out for a stroll, had a morning coffee, walking around the streets of Madrid, hustle and bustle, but it still feels a little bit like the calm before the storm. And it is going to be a storm later on tonight in the Bernabeu for the second leg of Arsenal's Champions League quarter-final against Real Madrid. They're in a glorious position, a commanding position after what happened last week in that match at the Emirates, of course. 3-0 they lead. Is the tie over? The closer it's getting till kickoff, the more I'm thinking, no, it is absolutely not. This is Madrid, of course, and all the talk over here, and I can assure you the narrative is very, very real over here, is that the Real Madrid remontada is on. They're going to come back. Arsenal are scared. They're fearful. You know, I don't know where it's really come from, that narrative, to be fair. Well, I do, the Spanish press, because I don't actually think it's true. You know, I've not really, obviously us as fans, we're nervous about what's going to happen tonight, but I certainly haven't got the impression from anything that the players have said or what Mikel Arteta has said that they're nervous about throwing it away or Real Madrid coming back tonight. But that's certainly the narrative that is being spun over here in the newspapers, on the radio shows. You know, I was at the press conference yesterday and it was jam-packed with local Spanish Madrid-based media, and they were doing interviews with Arsenal journalists. They were firing all the questions at David Raya and Mikel Arteta in Spanish once that we'd all spoken to them, and all of the questions were the same. It was about, are you scared? Are you fearful? Of the Bernabeu, of the noise, of the comeback, of the history, of the aura, all that sort of stuff. And I thought Arteta and Raya, and we'll look at what Mikel Arteta's had to say in a minute in the show, I thought they were very good in the way they handled it and the answers that they gave. You know, they were very respectful of Madrid, of what they've done, what they've achieved, and all that sort of stuff. But they were certainly saying, look, we're not scared, we're not fearful. You know, this is what, you know, we feel like we belong here. It's time for us to write our own history. But it is absolutely the narrative that is being spun here. And it's going to be, it's going to be, I can't wait. I'm so nervous, but I can't wait. It's going to be a really, really special night. And if they can get it done, fingers crossed that they do, and they make it to the Champions League semi-finals for only the third time in the club's history. And what a place to do it. And, you know, the ground is spectacular. I was there yesterday. I have to say, I don't like it from the front. I'm not a fan. I know some people do think the architecture is amazing. It's modern. It looks like a spaceship and all that stuff. But for me, it just doesn't feel like a football stadium. You know, I walk up to it, it kind of feels like I don't know, some sort of futuristic art complex or something like that. Inside it is unbelievable. You know, I went up after the press conference, so I went up to the 8th floor in the lift and got a sort of sneak peek from the press box of the pitch and everything, and it looks absolutely, the roof was on and it just looks spectacular. It's an unbelievable stadium from the inside, but I don't really like it from the outside. But you could just sense when I was up there and I was thinking, you know, it was dead quiet. There was no one there apart from me, basically looking out on this amazing stadium, and all I could think of was how loud it is going to be tonight. You know, the Madrid fans they're going to really, you know, they've kept the roof on. There's all the talk about the sort of noise that they're going to generate and the atmosphere that they're going to generate and how Arsenal are going to wilt under this intense atmosphere. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they stand up and they really show what they're about tonight, because it's going to be very, very special. I cannot wait. And to those of you who might be over here who are going, enjoy it. Be loud, because as loud as the Madrid fans are going to be, the Arsenal fans are going to be very, very loud as well. There are loads of them, obviously, in the official away section, but there's going to be loads dotted around the home section as well, and you're going to be able to hear them on the TVs later on today. And if you are going and you are lucky enough to have a ticket, be loud, support the boys, because they're going to need it, because Real Madrid are going to come flying out of the blocks and going to do everything they can to turn this around. We heard from Ancelotti yesterday. We heard from Jude Bellingham yesterday, who said, of course we can do it. Of course we can do it with Real Madrid. We know we can do it. And they will have that belief because they've done it time and time again. So they don't think they're out of it. And it's going to be down to Arsenal to stand up to what Madrid throw at them, defend well, can be ruthless when they get chances at the other end and try and get this job done for what is going to be a really, really spectacular night at the Emirates. So we're going to look at what Mikel Arteta has had to say. We're going to go through a predicted 11. Some of you guys have been sending in sort of messages ahead of the game. We're going to look at that as well in today's show before I head out. And I am going to do, hopefully, it might not ever see the light of day. But if Arsenal do win today, if they do get through, if it is a really spectacular day, I'm going to try and do a sort of behind the scenes type vlog as well that I'll publish at some point in the next couple of days, telling the story and trying to capture the sights and the sounds of, fingers crossed, what is going to be an absolutely historic night for Arsenal over here in Madrid. Okay, so team news wise, ahead of tonight's game, obviously we knew that Jorginho was looking very, very unlikely. That has now been confirmed by Mikel Arteta, but Ben White and Thomas Partey are fit to feature. They have travelled. Mikel said the positive one is Ben White. He managed to train with us today. He'll be in the squad. Thomas is available. He had a niggle in the game the weekend. That's why he came off, but he felt good after the last few days, so he's fine. Georgie, unfortunately, is not here after the incident over the weekend. He hasn't recovered, so our thoughts are with him. Like I said in yesterday's show, I think that's a blow for Arsenal. I don't think Jorginho would have played or anything like that, but I think it's definitely a blow because of his experience, what he could have brought to the team. As I said yesterday, I was quite interested. I was actually going to ask Arteta it yesterday, but I didn't get selected for a question, so I didn't get to ask him because we'll never know the answer now. But I was wondering what if there was any sort of consideration for Jorginho coming over here just for that sort of support and that experience that he can bring to the changing room. So good news in terms of Ben White and Thomas Partey, but not good news when it comes to Jorginho. We'll see if he ever plays for Arsenal again. Fingers crossed he does, but we'll wait and see. Mikel was obviously asked about, as I said, all the talk was about, are you fearful of the Madrid comeback and all that sort of stuff? And he said, I wouldn't use that word. I think it's respect and admiration for what they've done in this competition as a club over the years, the history they have, the values that they defend. It's unbelievable, amazing, and inspiration for any coach, any manager, any team. But after that, it's the competition. It's what we are going to do, what we are going to face tomorrow in a position that we know very well and that we are determined to go there and try and win the game, on how we'll ensure the players sort of don't get wrapped up in the emotion of it all and the noise of it all and the atmosphere of it all. We said, I understand that. It's part of Madrid's history and they have earned the right to be talking about these kind of sort of comeback scenarios. Ours is very different in our mindset, preparation and our thoughts, and how we're going to have the best chance to be better than them in the aspects that are crucial in the game, because they want to take the games to places very different to our intentions. And if we do that, we'll have a good chance to win the game. You know, it's easy saying that, but putting that into actual play, putting that into place in the context of the match when Madrid are going to be firing on all cylinders, you would think, and are going to come flying out the blocks, trying to get themselves some early momentum. It's going to be very hard for Arsenal to play the way they want initially. So I just feel those first 20 minutes are going to be so crucial to how this game's go. You know, if Real get themselves an early goal, then it's very much game on. We know that. But if Arsenal can see out that first 20 minutes, start to frustrate the crowd, quieten the crowd, frustrate the Real Madrid players and get some domination themselves or some control of the ball, I think that's going to be so important for what's to come in the remainder of sort of 70 minutes or so. Obviously, Mikel was asked about the Declan Rice's game last week, and on his free kick taking, was asked by Tom Canton, whether he's been practicing free kicks, and Mikel said he has, and if he can create any more of those moments, it'd be amazing. It was a great moment. I think the third goal as well was beautiful to watch, a very collective goal. When you come to this stage, you're going to have big team moments, big individual moments, and now it's time to do it on the pitch. Yeah, it'll be very interesting, the sort of maybe the noise in the stadium, the atmosphere in the stadium. If Arsenal do get a free kick 25 to 30 yards out, I do wonder what the Real Madrid fans will think. I think they'll be like, oh my God, here we go again. On Rice's sort of attacking prowess, he said, I think he's creating the story with us, and that moment is going to be in our history for a while, especially the way he did it, the manner he did it, and the way he did it twice, which is really rare. So it's about creating more now. And now I think he's going to have the belief that he's capable of delivering those kind of moments more and more. And that's something very important, because if he believes more, it's going to happen more often. Okay, so predicted 11 for tonight. I don't think there's going to be any surprises. I just think it's going to be the same team that we saw last week. You know, barring any sort of injury setbacks that we don't know about that have been kept under wraps, I just think it's going to be the same team. So, you know, even though Ben White's here, obviously, I think he'll be on the bench. So I think it's just going to be Raya in goal. It'll be Timber, Saliba, Kivior, and Lewis Skelly. I don't envisage any sort of change to that. Arteta was very sort of, David Raya, was very glowing of Jakub Kivior yesterday in his press conference. He was asked, you know, he's surprised at how well Kivior played against Real Madrid, having come in from the cold after Gabriel's injury. And Raya was like, well, no, I'm not surprised, because I think he's a really good player. And it's a fair play to Kivior. He handled that well. This is going to be another kettle of fish altogether. You know, how do you handle that sort of intense hotbed of of the Bernabeu. It's another big test for Jakob Kivior, but fingers crossed he can pass that test. And the signs have been good since he's come into the side. He's played well. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, I think the back four stays the same. Timber, Saliba, Kivior, Lewis Skelly, Thomas Partey, obviously past fit. He's available, so he starts. He's just going to play that number 6 position. Then we're going to have Odegaard and Rice ahead of him, no doubt. And then, I just don't see any changes to the forward line. It's going to be Saka. It's going to be Marino playing in that number 9 role. Marino, who's scored more goals against Real Madrid than any other team in his career, which is a remarkable statistic. Obviously scored the 3rd goal last week as well. So Marino, I think, will start. And then you'll have Gabriel Martinelli on the bench with the likes of, Trossard on, Martinelli on the left with the likes of Trossard on the bench to come on if needed in the second half. So I don't see any changes. I just think it's going to be the same 11. So Raya, Timber, Saliba, Kivior, Lewis Skelly, Partey, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, Marino, and Martinelli. Unbelievable night last night. After the press conference, I met up with a mate and we went into the city and had some tapas, a meal and some beers, met some other Arsenal fans who are over here who we were with as well. And we watched the Aston Villa game. We know now who Arsenal were going to meet in the semi-final. If, I'm not counting my chickens, but if Arsenal go through tonight, we know who they're going to play in the semi-final, and it is PSG after they won 5-4 on aggregate against Aston Villa. Villa obviously winning 3-2 last night in a remarkable game. PSG going 2-0 up, and then Villa coming back to 3-2, and it looked like they were, had all the momentum with them. It looked like they were going to come out. I don't think Emery got his substitutions right yesterday. He took off Rashford, he took off McGinn, and I really think that stops Aston Villa's momentum. I was surprised he did it because Rashford was playing really well. McGinn was tearing around the place. I just thought from those substitutions onwards, I thought Villa just lost the head of steam that they had, really. It's easy to criticise from us, but I just thought it was I thought those substitutions were ultimately didn't quite have the effect on the game that Emery would have hoped they had. It was a brilliant effort from Aston Villa anyway, but we now know that Arsenal are going to play Paris in the semi-final if Arsenal go through, and it was a sort of story of comebacks, not quite enough, but story of comebacks last night. First for Aston Villa, and then Borussia Dortmund as well in their game against Barcelona, and that's a kind of warning for Arsenal and what they're going to face today. No tie is over. 3-0, yes, it's a commanding position, but look at Paris Saint-Germain, Aston Villa yesterday. Paris Saint-Germain were 5-1 up on aggregate with only about 60 minutes of the game to go. And then, they were hanging on at the end after Villa staged a comeback. And so that's what Arsenal have got to keep in mind tonight. It is not over until there is 1 minute left on the clock and Arsenal still have a 3-goal advantage. I would not believe that the game is over tonight. I really, really wouldn't. It's going to be a huge night, and I think Arsenal need to be aware of what happened yesterday. But fantastic night of Champions League football last night. Right, moving on to some of what you guys have had to say ahead of tonight's game. Who's that? SSGSS James says, I feel the first goal will be key. Real get the first, it could be a nervous night. We score, and I feel it's game over. I was having this debate today with a journalist, Sam Dean from The Telegraph, who I was talking to this morning. And he was like, if Arsenal score, if they score, that's going to be game over. I just don't think that's the case. Maybe that's me just being a pessimist and having my Arsenal fan hat on and remembering Newcastle, St James's Park, 4-0 up with half an hour to go and somehow drawing 4-4. I will never believe it's over until the full-time whistle goes. I just won't. Against this Real Madrid team at the Bernabeu in the Champions League, I will never believe Arsenal are through until the final whistle is blown. I just won't. I get what you're saying. If Arsenal score a goal, it's going to be even tougher for Real Madrid. Of course it is. But without the away goals rule and all that, it's still just 4 goals. If Arsenal can score 3 goals in 16 minutes against Real Madrid last week at the Emirates, Real Madrid can score 3 or 4 goals in 45 minutes tonight in the Bernabeu with momentum behind them. And I'm not trying to be the voice of doom, anything like that, but it's how I feel. I just don't think this tie is going to be over until I just feel like it's going to go to the wire. I really, really do. John says, as we rested several players for this match, plus Arteta and his players saying in interviews that we need to go there and win, I think we will go at them like we did at our place. Attack is the best form of defence, which is why they hardly had any chances to score, whilst we had many and got 3 goals. If it wasn't for Saka putting pressure on their defence, we'd have not got the 2 free kicks that we scored from. I'm going to go with another 3-0 to us, because once we get one, the Madrid players will feel it's impossible to come back from. It'll mess with their heads and put them right off. John, if Arsenal win 3-0 tonight, I will send you an Arsenal shirt. Yeah, you've all heard me say it. If Arsenal beat Real Madrid 3-0 at the Bernabeu, John gets an Arsenal shirt from me. There you go, John. You can't get more fair than that. I hope you're right. I hope I send you an Arsenal shirt, but we shall wait and see on that one. Trevor says Real still have to defend. They can't afford Arsenal to score, so they will not be able to keep the Gunners penned back in their own half. Carl says Rice cooks better with the lid on you Gunners. That's obviously in response to the fact Real Madrid are keeping the roof on tonight. And lots of people are saying, well, Rice cooks better with the lid on. Indeed, it does. And Nick says, as someone who has cracked ribs before, I feel very sorry for Jorginho. One of the most painful and debilitating injuries you can get. Yeah, I think you could see it written all over Jorginho's face how much that hurt when he did do the injury at the weekend. And it is a shame for him, shame for Arsenal as well. I really do wish he was here. Right, a couple of people have pointed this one out. Goss and Boniface says the one person we need to have a good game is the ref tonight. And Boniface says, hi, Charles, I'm worried about the ref tomorrow night more than anyone else. Yeah, the ref, it's a huge occasion for him. It's Francois, what's his name? Francois Letexia is the ref tonight for France. He's refed a few Real Madrid games before. Don't think he's refed Arsenal. He was in charge earlier this season, actually, when Liverpool beat Real Madrid in the league phase. He was in charge of the 3-3 last season at the Bernabeu between Madrid and Manchester City. I can't remember him refereeing Arsenal before. Point me out if I'm wrong. Point it out to me. But I can't remember. And I do think he's going to have a really big game. You know, the noise, the atmosphere, the intensity, they're going to really put a lot of pressure on the referee. You would absolutely imagine that. The Madrid players are going to be on him. The fans are going to be on him. He needs to be strong here. Nothing stupid. It would be so annoying if we're left talking about the referee after the game. I really hope we don't. Normally, I have a lot of more confidence in some of these foreign refs than I do English refs, I have to say. But the Bernabeu is just, we know how intimidating it is, not just for players, but potentially for officials as well. So I really hope we are not talking about the ref. I think you're both right. He has to have a really strong game tonight, not bow down to the pressure that is definitely going to be put on him by the fans and the home support. The fans and the home players. I hope he does. And yeah, fingers crossed we're not left talking about him tomorrow. I hope we get to talk about a really special night of football for Arsenal. And hopefully, fingers crossed, everyone, a really, really historic night, and that we can all celebrate an unbelievable win and over the two legs and go through and get ready for a semi-final against Paris Saint-Germain. That's it from me this morning in Madrid. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Try not to be too nervous. I know it's easy for me to say that. I'm going to fail miserably. I'm going to be a quivering wreck by the time the game kicks off a little bit later on today. But come on, the Arsenal. Fingers crossed we get the job done. I'll speak to you tomorrow after the game. Enjoy it. Wherever you're watching it around the world, enjoy it. And I'll speak to you soon. Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.